Greetings. Assalamu alaikum, shalom, and peace to all, and welcome to the second Seed to Harvest workshop meeting. This meeting is geared towards urban gardening, and anyone that's interested in gardening, anyone that's experienced gardeners, anyone that would want some knowledge of gardening, this meeting is for you. And this is our second meeting on urban gardening. For the benefit of the listeners, this idea came from my own personal failures, many success really, but failure to try to do some urban gardening myself. I'm located in Oklahoma City, originally from New York City. So, and being in New York, that's not something we did. And as time has changed right now, we're facing the pandemic, and a lot of we're losing a lot of our people disproportionately in the Black community from poor health, food deserts, not knowing how to take care well of themselves. And also, we know there's becoming a food shortage. So we have to prepare for all kinds of things. And the way to do that, we have to have the knowledge, we have to have the will and desire to do so. And I'm hoping that this is a means to reach, as my mission to reach the public, not just the people in the Nation of Islam, but our community in general, to give us a knowledge base on how to begin thinking about and growing our own food. Now, last month we talked about indoor gardening, windowsill gardening, outdoor gardening, pots, raised beds, aquaponics, and we got a wealth of information and inspiration on how to get started. Even for the timid or intimidated individual, it can work for you. And learning how to do it and knowing what to do and increase our knowledge base is important. And that's what we're here to do. And this month, we will deal with compost, which is another component of having successful gardening. Indoor compost, outdoor compost, aquaponics too. From the questions that we had about the aquaponics, it was something new to me and a lot of individuals. So we can revisit information from the last a small aquaponic unit and then of a larger degree of unit. And so this information will benefit all, wherever you are in your gardening experiences. But first, let me welcome back my guests from last time, wonderful people. We had a good time. We learned from one another, and that's the beauty of it. No one knew too much, but we could learn from one another, and that was the beauty of it. Everyone walked away with something new. I'm going to start with Sister Portia. Welcome back, Sister Portia. I'm going to tell you a little about her, little bio on her. Sister Portia is a graduate from Winston-Salem State University in a Bachelor's of Science in Molecular Biology. Ooh, impressive. Sister Portia is a mother of 22-month-old twins and has been growing food for years. She started Grow Flow in the intent of educating and empowering others to grow food for themselves through basic and interactive classes. Welcome back, Sister Portia, and thank you for being with us again. Yay. You're welcome. I can't hear. Brother Kwame. Brother Kwame, welcome back. Kwame is in my community in Oklahoma and very active in this area. Brother Kwame has organic row crop. He's an organic row crop farmer, farming for the last 20 years. Manages 2 acres of farm. And he is a marketing manager of the Northeast Oklahoma City Farmers. He resides in Midwest City, Oklahoma, and he's a strong advocate for food sovereignty. Welcome, Brother Kwame, to coming back to our presentation again. Welcome again, Brother Kwame.
I am very honored to be with you. The second edition of From Seed to Harvest. Greetings from Oklahoma, and hopefully I can share with you my knowledge of in composting. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. And lastly, have Brother Gerald. Brother Gerald is a member of the Ministry of Agriculture and owns a Silk Road cotton food industry, specializing in freeze-dried navy beans. He is currently employed as an electrician instructor at the Hines Community College at HBCU and lives in Vicksburg, Mississippi. Welcome, welcome, Brother Gerald, back again. Welcome, everyone. And now it's to me is I find that it's an honor to have bringing these individuals to share information with you all. But like before we get into speaking with them, I have a posing question that we dealt with last time. We spoke on the problem, the why the Black community do not like growing food. We don't want, for the most part, we look for others to do for us what we could do for ourselves. And what happened that caused that? Because it was something that happened that caused, because we once did that, you know. So we dealt with the problem. And of course, going back to our enslaved situation for 400 years and leading to sharecropping, migration, proper components, which caused us to lose the skills that we had and the knowledge base we had. Now, this month's posing question is the solution, deals with the solution. How can we begin to evolve our understanding and thinking on the importance of farming and gardening? Again, I'll repeat the question. How can we begin to evolve our understanding and thinking on the importance of farming and gardening? This is open for any of the panelists to address.
Well, I'll start. Yesterday during our farmers market, we have called the NEOKC Farmers Market. We're in the northeast sector of Oklahoma City. We've been at it for the last 4 years. We had a senior citizen or elder farmer who was 78 years old. And his lovely wife who was 75 years old. We sit down and talk. They told me that this is their last year of farming, which I regret that. I think they'll probably carry on, but we do need to have more young farmers, more beginner farmers, more people who have dealt with farmers to get back into this amazing industry. Because if not, we will suffer as a people. So that is one of the last Misters, I will not recall their name, but 75 and 78, two senior citizens who grows probably the best watermelons in Oklahoma and the best crowd of peas and purple hull peas. They said they were getting out. So we do need other people to step up and carry the baton as far as farming and feeding our people.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, very much, Brother Kwame. Go ahead, sister.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Please.
Yes. So the one thing that came to mind when you asked that question was, we have a trending thing going on right now with Black Lives Matter, right? There's so many protests going on. People are trying to be more self-sufficient as far as not depending on this system that exists right now to protect our community, protect our families, protect our women, to do what we should be doing for ourselves, right? So Black Lives Matter enough for us to do, cover all of those other aspects. Black lives should matter enough for us to grow our own food so that we don't depend on anyone else to grow it for us. If we can't depend on a system to protect us properly, to provide us with freedom, justice, and equality the way that we deserve it as a human being, and look at us as human beings and treat us as human beings, then how in the world can we depend on them to trust them with the food that we put in our bodies that's supposed to sustain us?
Right.
So we have to get into that mindset of everything, all the basic necessities and beyond, we have to be self-sufficient with. And Black lives do matter, and our Black families matter. All of that matters. So we have to start with the foundation, which is healing and curing ourselves and feeding ourselves the best of foods. And the only way that we can guarantee that is if we're growing it ourselves.
Good, thank you. Now, so you would say the movement right now that we have that causes that full effect of the movement that's going on right now, this is a golden opportunity to community, tie it all into not just Black Lives Matter, but as a whole, individual, holistically, how we matter with ourselves and how we treat ourselves.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
And if I may add to that, agriculture is really the first culture. We've come to a point where that ideal of separation is really beginning to make a lot of sense to people who didn't really want to go that route, but it's starting to have more of a magnetic attraction. And that first thing that we have to do, we have to be able to feed ourselves. So, and in doing that, you create other businesses that come along with that, refrigeration, storage, grocery stores, all that. And so but you were asking for solutions. I think we kind of might, and I heard Dr. Ridgely say it, we kind of need to make agriculture cool. We need to make, give it some flavor, and also educate and let people know about the times and what we must do as a people. But it was also, I wanted to just point out that we didn't get in this situation by accident, with the Black codes. There's a portion, and I'm reading out of a secret relationship between Blacks and Jews, where it says Blacks were prohibited from buying or renting farmland except in designated all Black areas. So this is not something that has happened by accident.
Right.
Also states that the Black codes prohibit all freedmen, put that in quotes, from ever owning real estate, and that the very ideal of land ownership should never cross their Black minds. So, there are forces that have pushed us out of this, but now I think we're realizing that it's time to make it cool and get on back at it and build a nation.
Absolutely. I'm in agreement with all what's being said. I wanted to add the education and making it cool. Right. And Brother Kwame said the youth. So someone has to figure out or take a project on making it cool. Looking at the mind of the youth, how they think, and making it cool enough for them to take the ownership. Because Brother Kwame is correct, as the seniors get older, and they need someone to take over to continue this process. Okay, beautiful. And I want to add something also. The Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, when people wrote him letters, they asked him how can they break their bad habits. And I don't know if they wrote the extent of the whole question or wrote a long letter. Well, his answer was extremely simple: just stop. And as simple as that, we break bad habits with just stopping. So I looked at myself since the last meeting we had, and I spoke of the last time how I used to walk past my porch and just leave my vegetation just to die, and I said I'd do it tomorrow and start dying. I gotten better. I used to go 3 to 4 days past, now it's like every other day, increments. I gotten better, and I'm checking on them. I also trying to educate myself on more, because of what Sister Portia brought to light is about repurposing food. I've never heard of that in my life. So I got my celery repurposed, and I'm working on some carrots. I'm learning stuff about carrots. Carrots can't be repurposed the same way. I'm learning that through my experience, but not being afraid. And I'm confronting my fears, because the quarantine is what got my attention, to be honest. So situation got my attention, and now I'm last month's inspiration from the presentations I had, I'm inspired. I've learned about the soil, importance of the soil choices I had. Last time I said my soil was 2-3 years old. That's nothing for my stuff. So I know things are cause and effect. Something caused it to happen. And not being afraid of failure. Through my failures, I can seek solutions. But also educating myself. Brother Kwame brought a YouTube. I've been YouTubing, trying to find information on things, and I haven't run into troubleshooting my problems. And reading too. I'm going to share something, a fun fact with everyone. George Washington Carver published 44 bulletins during the period of 1898 to 1942 to teach former enslaved Blacks in America and sharecroppers practical farming techniques. And he also wrote a book of how to grow the peanut and 105 ways to prepare it for human consumption. Now, I don't, my dietary, I don't eat peanuts, but look what he made. Mock peanut chicken, mock veal cutlets, peanut patties, and peanut sausages. My goodness, and 100, that's not even 105, a few ways. So just educating and showing, reading on our history and what happened and giving myself more, increase my knowledge base is what helped to inspire me more after our last meeting. So increasing your knowledge base is very important. And confront your fears, acknowledge the fear, and then it's your will, the start of your will that will carry you. The will will carry you. So that you answered my question successfully, everyone. Thank you so much for that. And now I'm ready to go into individual presentations. Before that, just a few housekeeping points. For the benefit of everyone that's listening. After the presentation, we have a commercial break to celebrate Black-owned businesses that individuals just sent information about their different businesses in to share so we can circulate the money back into the Black community. And then after that, we'll follow the Q&A. So this is a good opportunity as the presenters are speaking to write your questions down in the chat area and start sending them in. And if you have any individual you want to address, let them know. If not, then it's a general question to the panel. So you have an opportunity to start sending them in, and we'll transition right after the commercial break into the Q&A with Sister Kadira. And then following that, I'll have any announcements and closing remarks. Before we do, we'll end with the gardening celebration of individuals that sent pictures of their gardens in, so we all can celebrate and see the progress in their works. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to begin with Sister Portia. She's going to talk to us about indoor compost and more. Things that we can do. She'll share with that. And I also ask that throughout the segment to let us know what, for the benefit of the early persons like myself that's still learning, to tell us more of what compost is, purpose, how it's maintained, set up, if it applies to whatever portion that you're speaking on. So let's start with Sister Portia so she can share with us wonderful information. Let's do it.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you again, Sister Rhonda, for having me. I too have learned so much from the last show. Just, learning myself and continuing to learn and be a student on this. So thank you for that. So today we are discussing indoor composting. The one thing we need to know, if anything else, composting is like the nature's way of recycling, basically. So what we just touched on last month was how to make gardening as simple and basic as possible, so nobody's intimidated in growing anything. We want everybody who has a desire to grow something to truly feel like they are able to do it. They have the power to grow whatever they want. Also, it's able to save a lot of money, right? We all are in the position. I'm assuming that we would love to save as much money as we can. Composting is going to allow you to do that as well. So according to the EPA, 30% of what we throw away should actually be composted instead. Okay, 30%. So all of us sisters who are making that bean soup, you know, we cutting the celery and the onions and the bell peppers and carrots. A lot of that stuff, we are just throwing it away, and we should not be doing that. So getting into the basics of what composting is. Composting is defined as organic material that can be added to soil to help plants grow. So just think of like a soil enhancer, right? So if you get the best organic potting soil or the best organic gardening soil, that's great. It's going to have the basic nutrients that you need. It's going to have the minerals that you need. However, when you add the compost to the picture, it's like adding everything that you need plus more, right? It's going to make your plants so much bigger and better and cause them to thrive. And it's going to allow the good bacteria that you need in order to produce that in your soil so that you can have a healthy root system and so that you can grow all of your fruits and vegetables as much as you want, and they will just be thriving in doing that. Now, organic in this sense, when they say organic material, it means that things that were alive, right? So things like plants, animal products, paper, and hair. Yes, your hair. Okay, we don't even want to throw away hair. So if you go to the hair salon or you trim your own hair, don't throw away those hair clippings. Put it in your compost bin, okay? Compost is so sophisticated. It's literally considered black gold to gardeners and farmers. It helps reduce the waste in landfills. And like I said before, it helps you to keep your coins in your pocket. Composting is a soil amendment or enhancer. So you don't necessarily want to grow your fruits and vegetables just in compost. Some people do it. I've done it before, but for the most part, overall, it's an enhancer. So you want to add that to the soil you already have, right? Like I said, it's going to not only make your plants grow bigger and better, but it also can keep pests away. Because as you are producing your compost, like Sister Rhonda said with George Washington Carver, he created other byproducts from that. You can create things like compost tea, which is basically where you are using compost that you've created, and you get like maybe cheesecloth or something, and you dip it and let it soak in some water for a good amount of time, and that the compost amendments and the compost minerals that have leached into the water, you can actually spray your leaves with that material, and that's known as compost tea, and that can help not only deter pests, but it can also help in feeding your leaves, because there's something that you can actually spray your leaves to help them get bigger and grow better and to stay healthy, right? So compost tea is one byproduct from composting. Now, there are 3 basic ingredients needed to compost. We want to keep it as basic as possible. So for those of us who have never even heard of composting, all you need are 3 major ingredients. You need your browns, your greens, and water. That's it, okay? Now, your browns are things like your dead leaves, branches, twigs, or things that you may have in your house. So we're doing it indoors, cardboard, dryer, and vacuum lint. So when you get your lint from the dryer, the lint that you throw away or whatever you do with it, put in your compost bin, okay? Shredded newspaper, not final calls now, we're not gonna do that, and shredded white paper, right? So most of us are like shredding paper for whatever reason, like to get rid of it and we're recycling it. Well, you can now recycle it in a way to help you produce some better soil and soil amendments. Now those are your browns, all right? So those are things that are literally like the dead, like the twigs, the branches, the brown things. Now greens are things like your grass clippings, fruit and vegetable scraps, and your coffee grounds. These are the greens. Now, things that you do not want to put in your compost bin. You do not want to put any type of dairy or meat products. Nothing of the sort. So no eggs, no meat, nothing with grease in it. So no cooked food that has been exposed to butter and things like that. You only want to put natural raw ingredients into your compost bin, okay? Because if you put any of those meat products or those dairy products, you will attract pests and you will attract insects, and we don't want that in our household. Now, when you're composting indoors, you will need a special type of compost bin. Now, you don't have to necessarily use a special one. You can get this off of like Amazon, or you can get it, I've seen them at Walmart before. If you don't want to go that special, you can always just kind of put it in like a little Tupperware dish. But I suggest you do the special compost bin only because they have special filters that have activated charcoal, that's made up of activated charcoal, that naturally absorb and reduce the amount of odor that's produced. So that's going to naturally eliminate odor so that you don't have to worry about any type of flying insects or anything in your home. Like I said, these are like very, very small, like a small little trash can looks like, but it's made out of stainless steel, and it has a special lid to go over it that has little filters on the top, and that is usually made up of activated charcoal. And like I said, you can get those from Amazon, you can get them from Walmart, all sorts of places have them. And they're not expensive at all. So this is the place where you will be placing and collecting all of your food scraps and other materials in order to start creating this compost. What you will need to do is moisten your browns and your greens. So we talked about the browns, the things like your dryer and vacuum lint, your shredded newspaper, your shredded paper, and your greens, such as your kitchen scraps, so fruits and vegetables, your coffee grounds, grass clippings, things like that, even dead leaves from your house plants. So don't throw those away. If you have leaves that you're pruning and it looks like you're trying to better your house plant or whatever, make it a little more lively, put those dead leaves in your compost bin, okay? Once you moisten it and produce some and get a little bit of water, you don't want to overwater it though. You want to just make sure that it's nice and moist and almost to the consistency of a damp sponge. Once you do that, then what you can do is you can continue adding your browns and your greens. So this is going to be an ongoing cycle. And as you're adding things, you want to make sure, like with your kitchen scraps, like your fruits and vegetable scraps, you want to make them as small as possible. So if you want to chop them up in a food processor, or if you want to chop them up manually, do that. But the smaller the pieces, the better, because that's going to make it an easier process for your bacteria and your other materials to break it down a lot quicker, okay? So the bigger the chunks are, the longer it will take for them to break it down. So basically, once you get that going and you're constantly adding more and more food scraps and your browns and greens and making sure you check the moisture level, you always want to make sure as you are making the compost bin and you're filling it up, you want to top that off with your browns, because that's going to keep any type of odor and any type of pest from coming in, any type of, it eliminates the amount of odor basically. So if you want to top the pile after you kind of, you made a layer, you've layered it up with your browns and your greens and your browns and your greens. Once you get to the top, you want to layer that top layer with your newspaper or your shredded paper or your lint, whatever it is, but this is going to kind of reduce the amount of odor that's going to be coming from your bin, in addition to the filter that already is made up in the lid of the compost bin if you're using the special one. Once you do that, you're going to be kind of like making sure you mix it around maybe once a week just to create air. You need air also in your compost bin, okay? That's going to promote the bacteria to really, really break down those materials that you've added to it, and it's going to activate them to move a little quicker as you're producing more and more air. So you're going to kind of, mix it up, making sure that it's nice and moistened, and then you also top it off again. As you're adding more, you're going to top it off again with that brown to make sure that there's no type of odor. And this is just an ongoing thing. So weekly, as you're cooking, you can add more. And again, if you're doing an indoor and an outdoor compost bin, you can take the ones that you've done in the compost bin inside, and you can always transfer that to a bigger one outside, so that this can be an ongoing system going on. But if you just have a small area like a balcony, you just want to utilize the compost that you're producing in your compost bin and inside, that's perfectly fine. So you're just constantly making sure that you're checking the environment inside, making sure it doesn't get too dry. If you smell an odor, that means that you have too much of those greens, which is the food scraps and things like that. You want to add more nitrogen. So this is like the same thing with your garden. You want to continuously check on it. make sure that it's okay, just like a baby, okay? And then as you are checking it, you are adjusting whatever needs to be adjusted if need be, okay? It's not a very hard process. Again, it's all about patience and it's all about trial and error. So, you know, you might find that something is off, or something's not as balanced, and that's okay. So that's when you switch it up and you start you can look up. There's several things on Google or Pinterest where you can find different tips if, you know, something is not necessarily right or something seems off and you need to add more materials or you need to adjust something so that it can get more balanced. You can tell when something is not balanced, okay? You're gonna smell an odor, or you're gonna see, you know, maybe some type of insects because something is just off, and that's just going to give you a signal that you need to take a further step in order to get it right. So as you are every week making sure that you are checking the moisture level and you are making sure that you're mixing up to get that air, then you can also make sure that if you are composting outdoors as well, let's say that you, like me, I cook just about every day, and I have a surplus of fruits and vegetables, and let's just talk about that wonderful Supreme Muhammad Farms watermelon, right? So I didn't throw away my rinds. No, ma'am, no, sir. I cut up my rind into small chunks. And what I do is anything that is extra that I can't add to my compost bin, or maybe I just don't want to go outside that day, whatever, then what you need to do is put it in a grocery bag and fill up that grocery bag with whatever you have, put it in the freezer, okay? And that's how you can store it so that it doesn't rot, it doesn't attract any insects. Put your surplus or extra compost scraps that you're collecting for your compost bin, either indoors or outdoors. I collect them in my garbage bags or my grocery bags, and I put them in my freezer. I have a deep freezer and then a regular freezer. And then whenever you're ready to add more kitchen scraps to your compost bin, you already have some there that's collected, right? So that's another way to keep compost scraps readily available. Now, for the most part, decay is going to do most of the hard work for you. And once the material at the bottom is dark and rich in color, your compost should be ready to use. It should have a sweet, earthy smell, right? It smells really, really good. Some people may not even think ew, how can dirt or soil smell good? Believe me, it has like a slight sweet smell, okay? You can tell when compost is there. And it doesn't take much time, especially when you're doing indoor composting. So it can very well take from like a few weeks to maybe a couple months for you to actually get the end result of some composting when you're doing it in a small batch like that. Now, outdoor composting is a different story. I'll let the brothers touch on that. But for the most part, that is really it when you're doing indoor composting. It's not very hard, not very complex. It may take a few adjustments, or you looking online to see, what does this mean? Why am I getting this type of result? Or what does this smell mean? You know, what does this color mean? But other than that, as long as you stay within the recipe of what is needed in order for it to stay balanced, just like in nature, you need that balance in nature in order for everything to flow properly. That's the same way with composting. So that's just about it with composting. Sister Rhonda wanted me to talk a little bit about growing potatoes in a bag. I'm actually growing red potatoes in a bag right now. So anybody who has ordered any type of staple goods product, you know how you have the navy beans come in that white bag? That is an excellent bag to grow potatoes in. So how many of y'all, I know I can't see your hands, but how many of you looked in your cabinet and you've seen the potatoes, they grow eyes, they have all sorts of stuff coming from them, and you're like, you know what? I forgot all about these potatoes, I'm throwing them out. Don't ever do that again, okay? You can either add those old potatoes into your compost bin, or you can actually cut off the piece where it has the eye on there. You can put that in soil. So let's say you have that navy bean bag, right? You fill your navy bean bag maybe halfway with soil, okay? Start there. You want to moisten it a little bit. You get those pieces of eyes that you have cut off. Now you want to cut off a piece of the potato that with the eye on it, okay? So you don't want to just cut off the eye, but a piece of the potato with the eye on it. And then you can actually plant those pieces of the potato in the soil, eye side up, okay? Eye side up, water it, and you can literally be growing potatoes in about 2 to 3 months. I just harvested some potatoes like a couple of weeks ago, and I'm in the process of now of seeding some Yukon potatoes in order to start growing those for the fall. Now, we don't normally eat a lot of potatoes in the nation. We're taught not to, only because it's very starchy. It's not necessarily they're bad for us, but they're very starchy unless you're in, very, very cold climates. However, because we're in this pandemic and we need a lot of food stored as much as possible, and we need staple foods and things that have a long shelf life or storage life, potatoes are excellent, because once you have harvested those potatoes that have grown, you can store them in a cool area, like let's say in your basement or somewhere that's cool and dark. You can store those actual potatoes for a few months and they will not rot. As long as there's no moisture, no sunlight, and it's cool and not a lot, and no type of heat, you can store those potatoes for a very long time. So potatoes are excellent to grow because they have a very long storage life. Okay, so as your potato plant is growing, you're going to be very excited. You're going to see it's going to be nice and green and beautiful with the leaves. You're going to continue watering it. Now, as the potato plant gets taller, you're going to start rolling up the bag on the sides, and adding more soil into the bag. The taller the plant gets, the more soil you want to add to the bag, and the more you want to roll the bag up. So you initially you roll the bag down about I guess 3/4 of the way, and you add that soil to it. And then as that plant grows, you're rolling the sides of the bag up. You're adding more soil. You don't want to cover the plant though. You always want to have the plant able to be exposed to sunlight. But continue doing that. And once you see the plant starting to die, that's when you can start beginning to harvest your potatoes. The indication that potatoes usually are growing is that the plants have started to die. So easy peasy is very, very, very easy for anybody who's interested or has never even thought about it, but it sounds like something that is, is simple to do. Go ahead and try it. Potatoes grow well in the fall. Now is the time to start thinking about and putting into action some things that you want to start growing in the fall, because fall is fastly approaching. So potatoes is a great way to start. So that's it. I don't know if anybody has any questions. We have a question segment a little bit later. So yeah, I'm excited. Hope someone learned something valuable from the indoor composting presentation and growing potatoes in a bag.
Beautiful. I learned a heck of a lot just now. I want to tell you, I'll be doing some potatoes.
Yes, ma'am.
But for the benefit of those that I have not ordered staple good before, when you go to like the markets that have those very, very large paper bags,
right?
It's like a large quantity of a product. Sometimes you see right. Rice or even potatoes. So those are the bags she's speaking of. The paper bags, but they used for large quantities.
Yes, I'm sorry, Sister Rhonda. I totally forgot. So I should have remembered that everybody on here does not necessarily know about staple goods. So you can not only grow the potatoes in just the navy bag, but you can also do it in a regular traditional kitchen trash bag, right? All you have to do is punch small, like maybe use a little screwdriver or something, just punch a few small holes at the bottom so that you have good drainage, and you can use a regular kitchen trash bag. So my apologies for that.
That's okay. When you say regular kitchen trash bag, you talking about the plastic bags?
Yes.
Okay, yes. When you put the holes in it, when the drainage, you need something underneath to catch the drainage?
Yes, ma'am. If it's not outside, yes, you will need something to catch the drainage. My bag, I have outside, like on the ground, so I just water it and just let it go into the ground.
Okay, beautiful. And I love this. But I have a question. So you say, well, first of all, the food should be organic, so it could be good quality type of food for the benefit of everyone on the call. But let me ask you something. You mean to tell me hair and hair in my head that comes out, and the newspaper, because newspaper has ink, none of that's toxic to you when it composts? It's not toxic. It becomes non-toxic.
So anything that's biodegradable can be composted. And you don't want to use too many things with ink. So like the newspaper, you can use it, but you don't want to use like too many things with color and all of that. It has a lot of chemical and ink. You don't want it to necessarily use that. And yes, like you said, you do want to make sure that you use, you know, we want to try to cook it with as many organic foods as possible. But if you're not able to, that's fine. Just use what you have for now. The whole point is let's start somewhere, okay? I don't want to overwhelm anyone. I don't want anybody to feel like, you know, the way that they're eating and the things that they have right now are not going to be suitable in order for them to start. So the point is just start somewhere so that you have something to work with.
Beautiful. And it's certainly measurable for me. Thank you so very much, Sister Portia. I learned how to get ready to get started for phase 2 in my process. Thank you for that. Okay, let's turn to Brother Kwame, which will talk about outdoor composting, and it's not some components may be different, but he want to add to it, and he want to, because this is what he does. Please share the information that you would like to give the listening audience. It's all yours, Brother Kwame.
Thank you. And it's probably a difficult task for Miss Easy Peasy, Sister Portia, but I will try to. A lot of the things that she has stated, and as far as indoor composting, are the same procedures that you will follow with outdoor composting. Now, I do a technique in garden. I never tilt my soil at all. I am a steward of the soil. I want to add to it or amend it. So I never tilt it. When you tilt the soil, it brings up all seeds and things of this nature, and it's very difficult to water. It causes erosion and all kind of problems. So that old idea, the old thing as far as tilting the soil, I never do. Now, when they brought in these big old tractors and things that never revolutionized the farming industry, they started tilting the soil so they could plant more seeds, and they thought it would be more productive. But in doing so, they killed the organic matter within the soil, those worms, those fungi, and other type of things that has been around for generations, years, 1,000 years, just kill all that. So the high organic matter that soil had, 6 to 8%, always dropped down to 1 or 2%. So that's why you have to constantly add those fertilizers, those synthetic fertilizers and things that are to try to enhance the food that we eat. To actually help kill the soil. What I do as far as no-tilt form is concerned, I'll put a barrier over the soil like cardboard, and I'll put compost over the soil anywhere from 2, 3 to 4 inches, and I plant within that. And my plants just, man, they just thrive. They just be clapping their hands with all that stuff that they get in it. And over a period of years, maybe 2 or 3 years, if you have that red clay, sometimes we have in Oklahoma, you can have the most richest soil in the world. So thank you, sister, for going over the basics of composting. And I just like to add, since I'm going outside with my composting and try to help these small farmers, the ones who have that garden and on the back, in their backyard or patio or whatever, how to make compost for that particular situation. Now you want to start with a container. You can build it out of wood, bricks, cinder blocks, rock, whatever. And you want to have it at least 4 foot wide or 4 or 5 feet deep, or 6 foot. And you want to use layers. Sister going over the brown and the greens as far as what compost are doing. So you want to layer brown and green. So you want to have a composition or ratio between your brown and your greens of 3-part brown and 1-part green. Now what green is, what you do, you want to layer it. You want to layer it in parts. So you want to start off actually at the bottom bottom of the base of the compost. Get you some twigs, some limbs and things to put over that, which is 4 foot wide, 4 by 4, 5 by 5, or whatever. So you don't want to be too large so you can't work it. Put some limbs down there so you can have some good drainage. And then you start building your layers. Put some brown there first. And when each layer, you want to put some type of manure or brown matter or things like that, or manure or any other type of thing to enhance the growth. You can use worm castings. Worm casting, you can do that yourself. That's just another form of compost. And sprinkle a little of that in, and also sprinkle a little of that hardened dirt in there. Then you want to build another ratio: the brown, then your greens, your brown, and your greens. In between each layer, put a little water. As the sister said before me, you don't want to just drench your layers with water. You just want to put a little more in there to add a little moisture so you can build upon that. Keep on adding it up till you get to around about 4 or 5 foot. Now what you want to do is let it wait a little bit, maybe a week, and then you want to start turning it. Maybe once or twice a week. Now what they'll do, as the sister before me said, add air into the compost pile, and the hot compost will start heating up. And the heat will go as far as 140 to 160. Now, if you use any like green materials in it, like grass clippings that you know might have abundance of seeds in it, the compost will get so hot it will just destroy all those seeds right there. And you keep building it up, keep turning it until all that aeration get in there and it start breaking down and start decomposing. And after a while, it might take 1 or 2, it might even take up to 6 months. But the more you turn it, the more often you turn it, better that compost will heat up and destroy everything in it. And it becomes that brown, rich, sweet smelling compost. And after the compost has started decomposing, and it will stop all of a sudden, stop eating. You get this right rich aroma in there, and you're just ready to put on your soil. Put on and how you want to use. You can incorporate it in the soil, but as you said, I use the no-till method. You incorporate this compost into your soil, or you do as I said, and plant your seed accordingly. And what that would do for you, number one, that compost, it would add nutrients back into the soil as an amendment. Number two, will build organic matter in the soil, so that's what the plants need. And now, then when your plants' roots come in contact with that good, rich compost, they just start clapping its hand to have something to feed upon it. The nutrients to get it to grow. And but what that does to the plant, not only will we grow a healthy plant, but it also would fight away diseases and pests and insects and things like that. So when a bug or something see a weak plant, it just start eating it up. But what that compost does is it builds a healthy plant to it. All those type of things to fight off all those insects and diseases and things of this nature. So you have a better plant, and you have a better tasting plant, and you have a highly nutritious plant. Also, put that compost, you just add all those ingredients in it. Number three, you can cut out all that fertilizer period. If you have made a good compost, you can cut out fertilizer period. Of course, what compost do, like I said, it adds all those different type of elements that a plant needs. So you probably can just cut out. If your budget is very high as far as fertilizer are concerned, if you build good compost, then you eliminate all of that. It might take a little time, but at end results will be better. Number 4, what good compost will do, it will not eliminate soil erosion, but it will really help it out. Because what it does, it preserves all that moisture that when the rain comes or you irrigate and stuff like this, you really don't have to irrigate as much. Because what good compost do will just enhance the soil as far as water is concerned. And all we're talking about is feeding the soil or becoming stewards of the soil. Steward to what we're doing. We just want to help the creator as far as helping ourselves. And if we both go that way, we'll be doing it. Sister Washington, Rhonda mentioned beforehand about our elder, George Washington Carver. He was known as the Peanut Man. However, when he looked at what farming was doing back in the day as far as tobacco and cotton, they were just destroying the soil. So he came upon not only the peanut, but he found that composting was a good way to build soil up for sustainability as far as what we're trying to do. Sustainability, what do you mean by sustainability? It means to something that goes on and on and on continuously and don't stop. But once you destroy the soil, you destroy plant life. And that's what we want to be. We want to be stewards of the soil. So use some compost. Now, if you buy compost, you will buy in cubic yards. So what is a cubic yard? Now, it's just 3 foot wide, 3 foot high, and 3 foot deep. That's the only thing it is. And you divide, and that's 1 cubic yard. You might want to tell you to put a ½ inch or cover the soil with 2 or 3 inches, things of this nature, but just use a little simple mathematics and you'll be able to find out how much compost you will need for your garden plot. Just measure the garden and it's just a little rules as far as dividing and arithmetic or whatever, and you'll find exactly how much compost you will need. So the sister said before me, Sister Portia, all the stuff that you throw away, your hair, all the stuff you can use in compost. Now, you can even use feathers as compost, anything that is organic. You don't want to use any meats and things of this nature. The only would you just drawing flies, in other words, start sneaking. And you might have to put that compost at like in a 1 acre in the back of your farm. But use those type natural things like straws or leaves or animal manure like cows and chickens and goats and things of this nature. Those things that you wouldn't, when you be cutting down, if you be cutting down your weed field, not wheat field, but if you have a lot of weeds and things of this nature or pulling out, like right now, my garden, my greens are almost dormant. So I'm gonna have to cut those off. Instead of just throwing them away or just burn them up, I would just put them in my compost pile and probably another 4 or 5 weeks or maybe 4 or 6 months and things that I can use that very stuff that I will pull out of my garden. I can put it in my compost pile and just in turn put it back into the soil and where the nature come from. That is sustainability. It's a way to enrich your soil, build it up, have a better yield as far as your crops are concerned. Even you have a better tasting food. And the food that you eat with all those chemicals, things that you would put into your soil, which you will produce nothing but cardboard when you eat it. If you enhance it with good compost, not only will you be eating less, but you'll be feeling better, and it goes a long ways. Thank you for having me, and if any other questions that need to come my way, I'll be glad to answer them, or the panelists on this platform will answer them with me. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Brother Kwame. So I hear you're saying that nature has a way of taking care of itself. Because you said so much with you have the fights with insects, cut down on fertilizer, all these things that we think we have to go out to buy. The compost solves many of these problems, and nature has a way of taking care of itself if we understand how and allow it to do so. I thank you
Yes,
so much, Brother
let,
Kwame.
let, me, let me add this. You know, during the fall time, when all those leaves, the autumn leaves start falling off the trees and that type
Right.
of thing, instead of throwing them away or send them to the landfill, just put them in a bag or things of nature and wait till the spring where you can make some compost out of it.
Wow.
And all those, when you be cutting your yard or whatever, take that greens and put it in your compost. So don't be sending it to the landfill.
Mm-hmm. So nature just wastes itself. We do.
Exactly.
Wow. Wonderful. I loving this. Boy, giving me a very enriched perspective on how much we waste. We don't even know it's you. You can repurpose almost nature repurposes, so we just don't understand how. Now it's time to get back to that.
That's right.
Thank you so much, Brother Kwame.
Thank
And
you.
Portia, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Now we're going to move to another way of also composting and also getting enriched in aquaponics. I love the way that the word sounds. So I was so excited when Brother Gerald presented last month, and I had so many questions and people wanted to, because it's a new process that we're unfamiliar with, a lot of us anyway. So they wanted to know, people want to know more about it. And also he will talk about composting in that perspective, as well as giving us, revisiting what she spoke about last time, and also introducing a larger unit on that. So Brother Gerald, I will turn it over to you.
You, Sister Rhonda, and I am happy and glad to be here, and I'm learning quite a bit. And the questions that we had were, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, I'm attempting to do a little screen share. Can you see it? A complete guide to can you see that?
Yes, we can.
I can't hear you. Can you?
Yes, we can see
Can you see? Oh, beautiful. Okay. Not getting too technical. You know, I just want to give you the basic, concepts and the principles that you deal with when you deal with aquaponics. And that word aquaponics, it comes from aqua and ponics. The aqua represents raising fish, and ponics come from hydroponics, where you're taking and you're raising plants without soil. You're in a nutrient water mix. Okay, so if you can see right here, this little diagram here, it makes it real easy to understand where you got your water here. And if you can see that the water is being pumped up over the plants, and the water is draining back through. Can you see that? Can you see that?
Let me keep it. Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So what you have here is that's your basic principle right there. That says it all in a nutshell right there. Now there are a lot of different ways that you can do this. You can, but knowing the basic principle of what you're doing, you can modify this to your own desire, and you can use what you get around the house. A lot of us we have 50 water fish tanks sitting around, and it's just sitting there. Why don't you take it and use it as a aquaponics system? Grow you some fish that you can eat, and also some plants that you can eat. Okay. there we go, aquaculture and hydroponics. And the aquaculture part is where you're using fish, and the hydroponic is where you're just growing plants, and you're combining those two methods together. Okay, and I had a question about when did aquaponics, the history of aquaponics, right? And I wanted to just point out that this is the word right here, that Nile Valley. You know, the way the Nile Delta Valley is set up is that during the floods, the waters from the Nile would come in and they would fertilize the crops, and then the water would recede back out. And that ebb and flow is really a gigantic aquaponic system in itself. I wanted to point out some of the advantages. It's extremely efficient when it comes to water usage. Okay, for the same amount of produce, an aquaponic farm requires 2% of water, and that's the regular farm will use. So you're only using just 2% of that water. Okay, when compared to standard aquaculture, now you're comparing it to raising fish. But the same tilapia yield aquaponic system needs only 1% of the water for regular pond culture. Okay, I'm going to skip around here. Disadvantages, aquaponics is a power hungry, especially if you're planning to maintain the production during the winter. So, and it also depends on the type of fish that you use and the type of plants that you're growing. I've experienced, had a little experience raising tilapia, and tilapia, they are a temperature sensitive fish, and you got to use some heating elements to keep that water at a certain temperature. Okay, and yes, water quality. You got to constantly monitor that water quality. Let's see. Okay, I had a question asking about the equipment. Some of the basic equipment that you're gonna need. You're gonna need a fish tank, a plant bed, a settling basin for solid waste, a biofilter for nitrification, and you're gonna need that water pump to circulate the water. Okay, and the types of fish that you can use is, there it is, the tilapia, trout, catfish, carp, largemouth bass, ornamentals, but what I've found out that I get most success with is using bluegill fish. They call them perch. Yep, bluegill. Okay, all right. Now I wanted to, let me see, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna pull up this other, here it is. This will show what we had. We're gonna show it in action. This is we're gonna review that small system that we did earlier, and on the first conference. So if you would just bear with me, and if you got any questions, might want to jot them down, but here we go right here. We'll take you. Okay, and we'll start this up.
Ahead and you're gonna get your.
Okay, are we looking okay here? Yeah, those are bluegill. Okay, the sound will be coming in a minute. I don't know if you can hear me or not. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You in the video?
Okay, all right. We'll pick that up.
All right, okay. What I'm gonna do is, I'm just going to give a demonstration on an aquaponics system, a home aquaponics system. And we're using a 55-gallon container, and our plants are right here. I'm just going to give you a run through on how this is done, real simple. Okay, first we start with our growing medium. We're going to use you went off.
Mine went blank.
That's compost.
Okay, all right. So we're starting with our worm castings here. We start with good, authentic red wiggler worms. Can you see that? Can you see that? You got your red wiggler worms here, and what they produce worm castings, extremely nutritious soil medium. Okay, we're gonna take 50 of your worm castings. We're going to sift through and get those castings out, and then we'll take a 50-50 mixture of this is peat moss, and we'll add it in with our worm castings. Okay, we're going to get 50-50 worm castings, add those in, and then you'll mix it up, and then from there you'll come in with your trays. Okay, these are just six trays, and we get those from places that sell plants, Walmart, Home Depot. And you fill up your trays, and then you would go from there. You would either put your seeds in, or you can stick some plants in. Okay, all right. Now, that's the simple part. I wanted to show you the actual setup of that aquaponics system. Okay. This is the device is called the Bell siphon. Okay, what you want when you put your plants in, you want your plants to be able to get oxygen and water. So this setup here, this Bell siphon, what it'll do is it'll allow the water to flow up, and then it will dump. It will empty all the way out, and then it will fill back up. And that process repeats itself in a cycle. So it'll fill all the way up, and then it will dump out, allowing your plants to get moisture and also air, so that you don't drown out your roots. So this is the device. What it does is it creates a vacuum, and it uses siphoning effect. A vacuum is created, and the pressure will once it fills up, it will create a pressure that will dump, exhaust the air, and the entire system right here will go dry relatively. Okay, so I'm going to put that there. Now to keep the gravel from getting around it, I'm going to put on a little sieve here to protect it, and then I'm going to put some larger rocks around it. Now there is a hole in here. There's a hole that's tapped in, and then there's a rubber grommet to keep it watertight. Okay. Then we'll come in with our sieve here, and then I'm going to put bigger rocks around it, just to keep those little rocks from sinking on through there. Okay. And then we can kind of fill in, patch in, patch in, patch in, patch in. Okay, all right, that's what you got there. Okay, now, let's take it over here and see, take it from this phase to this phase right here. Okay, water is coming in, being pumped from the fish tank. The byproducts from the fish, the nitrates that come from the fish, and the waste product of the fish is nutritious for the plants. So what you have is, you have water draining in, and water coming in, and it's going to fill up. And watch underneath here. Watch how the water's filling up, and at a certain point, it will dump all that water out. Any day now. There you go. Okay. So it's and that forceful water also aerates the water for the fish, so that the fish are now getting air through the water. Okay, All right, now, one of the things, what we have up here, now, the plants that we have is we have, you get broccoli sprouts, and we also have some bell peppers up here, okay? And once those get up to size, your bell peppers, we'll sit them out in the bigger field, okay? But you can put your bell pepper, you can start these from seeds and then take them on and get them up to size and then put them out in your field. Another thing that you can do is you can use, these are suckers, tomato suckers. If you went and you bought a 6-pack of tomatoes, it's going to cost you about $3.50 for that. But once those tomatoes come up to size, they'll produce suckers. And a sucker is a leaf that's in between the plant and one of your horizontal vines there, and in between that, a sucker will grow. And so what you can do is you can pluck that sucker off, and you can take that sucker and you can put it into a soil medium and give it some time. You got to keep it moist. You got to kind of baby it. And over time, it will develop roots, and you can take that right there. Those roots, once they develop, you can sit them in the ground, set them out, and set them in a pot, and you've got another tomato plant. So that means you can buy one tomato plant or get your 6-pack, and then you can have a whole grove of tomatoes based on removing those suckers. Here's one right here where if you look, you'll see that it's developing roots. Okay, all right, now that one right there is ready to go and be set out in the ground and set out in your pot. But that right there is what we call a sucker in propagating tomatoes. Now, this type of system sitting them in here is kind of ideal for them, and it gives them that baby environment where they're getting the water, they're getting the nutrients from the fish, and they're also getting air, so that you're not drowning out your roots. Okay. If there's any other questions that you might have, just let us know. And that right there will conclude this little operation. And so I thank you very, very much.
Okay, are we back?
Yes, we are.
Are we back? Okay. Now that's a 50-gallon aquarium that we use, and you can raise 50 bluegill fish or tilapia fish in that tank, and so when you get ready to, if you got a taste for fish, just dip your net in there and have a good time. Okay, now I wanted to show a larger, let's see if I can find it here. Okay, now this is a 200-gallon, 250-gallon container here that I'm going to attempt to show. Okay. Pause you. Okay, all right, I want to go back here. Okay, pulling it up. Okay. Okay, here we go. I wanted to now share this with you. Yeah, I think this is it right here. Okay, and now this is a 250-gallon system here.
This is our crude aquaponics system. You get fish inside the tank here. These are grams, and yeah, the cat likes them too. And what we have is fish here, and and the water from the fish is sprayed over plants. If you can see that. And the plants on a gravel bed. Okay, and it also has 2 gears on it by which we could put plants in the top section also. But this is just a food system. And once again, the process works by a pump that pumps the water from the bottom. It's an external pump, so you don't have to worry about contaminating the fish water. And that water is pumped up through and it's sprayed from the top and also sprays over the first bed, the lower bed, and then it goes up and it sprays over the top bed also. Okay, and then you have a drain which takes the water out here and it brings it back into the tank. Now we've also piped that in to a hole system that we use to irrigate the plants with a simple hole system. There we go. Okay, all right, and this is all contained inside of a hoop house. It's obviously a 16 by 30 foot PVC hoop house, and we've got some tomatoes and more tomatoes, some peppers, and this is some of what we picked out of here today. We've got chocolate cherry tomatoes, brandy wines, cherry tomatoes, and a lot of different kinds. We'll have to ask Linda about those. But that's what you're looking at.
Okay, and if fish, yeah. Okay, and that just about concludes my little presentation. But you want to keep it real simple, and you don't just understanding the principle, and asking the questions, and doing a lot of YouTube videos and whatnot out there. The next system that I have is a 500-gallon system, and that's just and if you see, I'm using some cheap around the house PVC old pump. I mean, nothing extravagant. I'm just grabbing some stuff that I got around. My budget make it like that. It's and I've been probably playing around that since about maybe 7-8 years. Been messing with that. So if you got any questions, it's nothing really complicated. It's just understanding those principles on how it actually works. Okay, and thank you.
Oh, wow, beautiful. Brother Gerald, question. So the compost in this case would be the worm castings?
Yes, ma'am. It's a worm casting and peat moss mix, 50-50.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I noticed you smiling when you saw those worms, when you're holding the worms in the video, you were smiling. So you see the real richness of using the worm. I said, boy, it must be good. Thank you. Just have one quick question before we move to the next segment. How does it, because of this fish involvement, how does the vegetables taste? Is it no fishy taste, is it? Aftertaste?
Oh, no, ma'am. No, ma'am. That's well, what the major nutrient that's produced with the fish is as they release ammonia, and that ammonia, the nitrates in the ammonia, is converted into nitrates and the nitrates And that's what your plants really thrive off of. Is those so the nutrients from the fish are being absorbed by the plants, and you don't really get any fishy
No. Okay, that's awesome. You know, I'm really loving this because it's really inspiring me. I didn't think I could even think about that. I think this time around gave me a chance to revisit and give an even richer understanding. I think something like that I can eventually do. I think it's possible. I think all this is possible. It's possible. Right. And the repurpose thing, I'm getting excited. I've never been excited about repurpose stuff. My husband drives me crazy. But now I'm getting a little excited about it. Wonderful. Yes. Thank you so very much. All three very beautiful presentations. Continue to inspire me and make me want to spend more time in doing something more for myself in this area of gardening, and even venture now eventually aquaponics is something I really want to look at one day real soon. So anyway, anywho, we are going to be in the next segment of just a commercial break to celebrate Black-owned business. Remember, we want to recycle our money back in our community, and this is another way of helping us to share what everyone has out here. And following after that will be a Q&A session for any questions that come in, and you still can send your questions in for the panel to answer. So let's take a small commercial break to honor our Black businesses. So just a minute of pause before the presentation.
Good evening, everyone. I will be doing the Q&A portion of From Seed to Harvest. And just a reminder that you can continue asking your questions in the chat as we go on. And of course, there will be targeted questions to various presenters. So let's get started. So the first question that we have, and this one is directed to Sister Portia. Someone had asked, should we not put eggshells into the indoor compost?
Yes, ma'am. You can use eggshells, just the eggshells. Make sure you wash them out first and let them kind of dry a little bit. And you can definitely crush them up, and you can definitely use them in your compost bin. I felt it to actually share that part of it. So yes, ma'am, you can definitely use eggshells.
Okay, great. So the next question is directed to Brother Kwame. Is there a particular preference in the type of manure used in preparing outdoor compost?
You can use practically any type of manure. Chickens, pigeon was very high as far as nitrogen is concerned. Horse manure, cow manure, goat manure, any type of, I wouldn't use any cat or dog manure, but any type of, you could use it, but you have to heat it to make sure you get all those pathogens out. You can use horse manure also, but usually in horses, they have a whole lot of chemicals in them to treat different types of diseases and things. So you really have to heat those up, and you might not even get rid of it. But the answer to your questions, we're really trying to emphasize organic products. So make sure if you use horse, cows, or any type of livestock like that, make sure they're organically fed with good nutrients, things of nature. Yes, use those. Very high in nitrogen and very good as far as compost is concerned.
Okay, thank you. And then for Brother Gerald, there was one question in particular, and I'm going to combine actually two of the questions about aquaponics. First, do aquaponic tanks have to be indoors? And secondly, in your experience, is there a recommended size of fish tank and type of fish for certain plants and vegetables? So just overall, those are questions, I suppose, in preparing your aquaponic tanks.
Okay, as it relates to keeping it indoors, that's not a requirement. You know, the one I have now is outdoor, open air environment. And the other part of the question, the size. A rule of thumb is that depending on how many fish you want to raise, 1 gallon per fish. If you're dealing with the bluegill, the perch, the trout, it's recommended that you use 1 gallon, no more than 1 gallon per fish.
Okay, and do you have to use, is there like a certain type of fish that we should use for certain plants or vegetables? Or is like any type of fish for any plants and vegetables?
I would say any type of fish for any you can use one. I don't think there's going to be too much of a difference between the type of fish that you use. Now, as it relates to the different crops that you can grow, you want to try to stick with leafy vegetables like your spinach, your kale, like we do lettuce, and like sprouts, like we do broccoli sprouts, and sunflower sprouts, alfalfa, things like that. Leafy vegetables tend to work best. You could use You could do tomatoes and bell peppers also, but you got a limited amount of spacing. You want to maximize that. So doing it with those small nutrient packed crops, that'll get you the bigger bang for your buck.
Okay, thank you. And then this one is actually for, looks like anybody. It was during Brother Kwame's presentation, but I think anyone can answer this because it'd be helpful for everyone. What type of soil do you add to the compost for container gardening?
That'd be Sister.
What type of soil do you add to the compost?
For container gardening, yes.
So, are they asking what type of soil are you putting in the container, or what type of soil are you going to add to the actual compost itself?
I think they're talking about what type of soil you're going to add to the compost itself.
I don't know if you don't necessarily have to add soil per se. You, like Brother Kwame mentioned, you can add different types of manure. But if you're doing like indoor gardening, just your browns and your greens should do just well. If you want to, you could use some organic soil if you wanted to, just to add. That will just kind of, I guess, help in speeding up the process, but you don't necessarily have to add soil to your compost.
Yeah, add to that further, you want to amend the soil. So if you have a sandy loam, or if you have like a clay loam, like if you add this compost over continuous over 3, 4, 5 years, it will build up that soil. It will enrich that soil. Now, your sandy loams, it has a tendency to lose nutrients readily.
Right.
Your clay soil, your clay loams have a whole lot of nutrients in it, but it's hard to get them out. So what the compost will do, it will enhance both a sandy loam, a sandy clay loam, and a clay loam, and eventually, over a period of time, it will build that soil up. So what you're doing, instead of all adding soil into the compost, you'll be amending the soil with the compost. That's the main thing. I think the distinction that you will discuss right there.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
So then there's actually a question similar to that one, and I think you answered it, but in case you wanted to expound more on that, this one in particular was for Brother Kwame. I'm again combining a couple questions. Should you do a pure compost or mix something with soil? And then they also asked, what is the best type of soil barrier that you recommend? They said that you mentioned cardboard, but is it better than what you get in places like Home Depot and other stores?
Okay, here's what in the no-till process. I use the cardboard just act as a barrier between the weeds or grasses that will be growing up before I put the compost down. If I just put the compost over grass, it just outgrow and probably smother the vegetables out. So I want to put the cardboard down first to act as a barrier to prevent weeds, grasses, and things growing up through it. Then I put the compost on it, and eventually the cardboard will break down, deteriorate, decompose, and over a period of time, it would just enhance the whole situation. 4 or 5 years now, you probably wouldn't even see any grass seeds under there, because the compost is just acting as amendment. Now you can use also, and before that, take one more step further. You probably heard of crops, cover crops. You can use cover crops as a green compost. In other words, you just be planting things like legumes and other things over field and letting them die, buckwheat, whatever. And that would act as a living compost to enhance your vegetables. So you can build your compost, or you can use a cover crop and act as a green compost, and we'll do the same thing. So you want to get rid of the weeds, you want to build up the soil, build up the organic matter, and also add nutrients to the soil. Just using compost as far as amendment. As Sister Portia has said in her first discussion, compost is an amendment to the soil. You are a steward to the soil. So we want to help the Creator make better soil. If you have better soil, you inevitably have a better plant.
Wow, that's really deep. And there's one more question about what to do with adding things into compost. And I'll put this question to Sister Portia, since you were the first one to talk about adding hair to our compost. Someone had asked, could you use animal hair, like if they have a cat or a dog as well, could they add that to the compost?
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, thanks.
One thing,
go ahead.
The last question was asking about the difference between store-bought barriers for your composting foundation versus like cardboard, and Brother Kwame definitely did an excellent explanation. But I think the main difference is cardboard is just cheaper. It's cheaper and it's biodegradable and sustainable, so it's going to break down. It's healthier for the environment. When you have those barriers that you get from like Home Depot, it's not necessarily something wrong with it, but it's not going to break down. It's going to just be there, you know? So if we're trying to be better stewards to the environment, to nature, then we can use like the newspapers and the cardboards. And it's cheaper, it doesn't cost any money, and it's going to help all at the same time.
I think that's an excellent point you make. And I think that's another really amazing thing about composting itself. It's sustainable, and that's the key, because I don't think a lot of us understand the depth of food waste and how that actually impacts and harms our environment, and ultimately comes back to ourselves. Like, for example, a head of lettuce, if we put that in the landfill today, it would still not rot in 25 years because of how the gases don't allow it to decompose. So this composting process is really, really important for a lot of reasons. And like you said, for the cardboard, it's sustainable as well. For the next question, this one's for Brother Gerald. Does soil from the plants ever seep back into the fish tank or aquarium?
Yes, ma'am, that can happen. But what you do is when you're putting that gravel medium there so that the water, and it presents a filter in itself, the gravel, and also when the water drains out, it never really drains out completely so that it takes your soil out. But putting that gravel, and also you might have seen when I constructed that system and we were putting it together, we put a little sieve on top of it and we put the rocks around it. That's to block out your soil from maybe draining back into your tank. But yeah, you're gonna get it's gonna happen, and you just have to clean your tank a little more often. But it's not a bad thing. But I did want to, if I had to just stray and talk about that composting, I wanted to get in there and say that the composting aspect is so very, very, very important. I mean, if you want to eat good, wholesome food, you got to compost to get those micronutrients, those macro minerals and all that in the soil that the compost will provide. Commercial fertilizer will not give it to you. There's a saying about now it takes the nutritional value of 1 carrot 7 years ago. You have to eat 7 carrots or something like that now to get that same nutritional value. And that's a result of us not being good stewards of the land.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
Just wash your tank out a little more.
Oh, another deep answer. So this question, I guess, is really for anyone, since Brother Gerald also has some insight about composting. How should we store our compost? And I guess it's more on the same grain of another question, is how do we not let our compost rot? And I know Sister Portia touched on it a little bit, but if someone could expound more on those two questions.
So storage as far as indoors, like I said, you can get the mini compost bins that have the special lids that will absorb and eliminate odors. It has the activated charcoal filters. That will be your best bet, to be honest. And like I said, also you can store your food scraps in like what I do. I just simply put them in grocery bags and put them in the freezer until I'm ready to add them to my compost bin. And so I do that, and then I take it to my compost bin outside. I actually have a compost tumbler. That's a little bit easier for me for right now. But yeah, storing it, as far as like, you can do like a compost tumbler or just your compost pile outside, or if you're doing it on a smaller scale, you can just put it in a pot. Like once the compost is actually been produced, you can just put it in a pot, like in a regular pot, and just, maybe cover it up to keep it protected. And then as you need it, you can just, take as much as you need out. But you don't necessarily have to put it in a cold, dark place or anything like that. The compost itself is not what's going to be attracting the insects. It's the process of the material that you're putting in, the process that's going to attract it. So your food and vegetable scraps is what you would need to worry about with that. So just getting a protective barrier to keep that from happening. But once the compost is actually produced, then you can just put it, wherever you have, some space, or a little container or a pot or whatever. Or if you're outside, you have more space, you can put it in an actual, like a trash can, things like that. It's just fine.
Okay. So Brother Kwame, do you have anything else to expound on that?
Well, if you're outside, you might want to use a tarp or something like that to put over the compost. And that's it. And when you first be making your compost, put some type of, as far as a barrier, some limbs or something on the ground, so you won't have that compost kind of seep in your water line. But cover it over your barrier. But main thing, really, when you make the compost, use it. Put it on your land and let it work for you. That's why you're making the compost, to act as amendments. Once you get that good compost made, put it to use.
Wow. Okay, so Brother Gerald, back to you. What if your backyard does not get a lot of sun because it is on the north side of house and trees? Actually, I think that might be a question for anybody, but it was asked during your portion. So maybe I'll repeat the question. I think this is for anybody. What if, oh.
What you want to answer that?
No, sir. I can leave it to y'all to answer that question.
No, what I would do now, some plants require 6 to 8 hours of sunlight, and there are some plants that, such as mushrooms, that doesn't require any sunlight at all. So you just have to study up on the plants. Some require a certain amount of sunlight, and some require a limited amount of sunlight. So if you have a backyard that covered with trees, you might want to use those type of plants, those type of crops, so they don't have to have that much sunlight, so you don't have to be cutting down all those beautiful trees on your landscape. So do a little studying, and you can plan accordingly.
And Brother Gerald, I apologize, you were on mute. Did you also have something to say on that?
No, he answered it. He answered it. But you can also think about cutting the trees, or trimming the trees.
Okay.
Now the fall and winter season is coming up. It's actually ideal for you if you are that person who does not have a lot of sunlight, because the fall and winter crops do not require a lot of sunlight. Right. So now you can just kind of do your research on what you like to eat in your family, your household, and just plant those fall and winter crops. And those will probably thrive in your backyard because of less sunlight.
Well, that falls right into another question. Someone asked, could you do indoor and outdoor composting year round?
Would you repeat that question?
Could someone ask, can you use indoor and outdoor composting year round?
Brother Kwame, I'll let you take that one.
You my good sister. Yes, I mean, it really depends on the crop. And you know, when in the wintertime, there's not stuff in America grows in different temperature zones. Like if you go down south, it's different temperature zone where you can grow things. You know, grow up north, it's different. So it really depends on that zone that you're in as far as planting are concerned. When the fall months come, you might want to use compost to grow that green manure, so to speak. So when springtime comes, you would take less compost for that green stuff that you have grown. But in the horse, if you don't have a high tone or hoop house or something like that, it's very difficult to grow certain type of foods.
Yeah,
Depends on the food, really and truly.
Did someone else have something to expound on that?
I wanted to add, Brother Kwame kind of hit it when he mentioned temperature. You know, with that composting process, I think there's like 2 types when you get active and passive. That active method is when you take and you, after you layer your browns and your greens, your carbon and your nitrogen material, and wet it down, and you have I think it's that critical mass of at least 3 feet. That compost is going to heat up. It's going to heat up, and the active method is to take and use a compost thermometer. When that temperature gets up, it can get up like 150 degrees or even higher. You can watching the temperature once that pile heats up and then it starts to go back down. That means you need to introduce some oxygen to it. So you would turn that pile, turn it, and then it'll heat right back up, and then repeating that same process. That's an active way. The passive way is to just pile up your layers and just let them do it on their own. I think you can, the time difference between getting, somebody mentioned compost rotting. I never heard of compost rotting. You know, it is rotten. You know, that's what you're going to do, right? But with that active method, and another thing with the temperature, we use compost bins to actually heat up high tones, because they heat up so high, and when you keeping them active like that, it cuts your time. I think you use at least 1/3 of the time it would take to break it down if you were going to do it the passive way. But that composting is so very important. Y'all don't want to know nothing about vermicomposting with worms? We'll get into that later.
Yes.
Ooh, that sounds like another workshop. I can see.
Another workshop.
Oh, so Sister Portia, I know that you kept correcting the Brother Kwame, but there is a specific question to you about indoor composting. So someone asked, do you use, excuse me, they asked, does it make a difference when growing plants indoors out of season? If do you have to change how you compost, and if so, in what way?
You're growing plants out of season?
Indoors, right. Like, do you
so let's say like that you usually don't want to plant things out of season. The only thing you can kind of do year round that's guaranteed are herbs. So anything else like your tomatoes, your bell peppers, all of those that are summer crops, you don't want to necessarily plant them out of season. Now, let's say you have like a greenhouse or a hoop house, and yes, you can possibly do that. You can grow things out of season, and you don't have to change anything up with your composting as far as the ingredients that go in it. So just continue doing it the same way, and you know, it just depends on the amount of space that you have. But as far as just growing it in your regular living space, that is going to be pretty difficult unless you have certain special equipment to do it.
Okay.
Like possibly grow lights, if you have grow lights and things like that, but it's gonna, that takes a little bit more, money and materials and effort. But I mean, it's possible. But again, we have to remember the root of this is the reason why things are grown in season. God has put certain vitamins and nutrients in those plants for that particular time of year that you need it. And it helps your body for that particular time of year. So the summer crops have certain nutrients that your body needs in the summertime due to the fact that it is a lot of sunlight out there, and it's a lot of things going on with your body changing, and so you need certain vitamins and minerals in order to sustain you, versus in the wintertime when you don't have a lot of sunlight, you need other things like vitamin C, which is why oranges and things like that are more readily available in the wintertime, because that is the vitamin C that you would need in order to build your immune system. So just keep that in mind. If you're doing more of a larger scale, like commercial type growing, then that's different. But if you're doing something like a backyard garden, let's try to keep it, if you desire. I don't want to, try to make somebody do something they don't want to do, but let's try to remember the reason why, keeping it in as natural as possible and as original as possible. God made these fruits and vegetables and herbs to grow in certain times of the year for a reason. We don't want to change what he's already designed.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Again, more deep answers. So there's 2 or 3 more questions left, and then I'll turn it back over to Sister Rhonda, who will close us out. So stay tuned, because you'll find out the next workshop and what that's about. And Sister Portia's question, the answer, Sister Portia's answer kind of alluded to the next one. So, Brother Kwame, how do you eliminate natural bugs that hatch, like caterpillars that come up out of your compost outdoors?
You do what now?
Like if you, how do you naturally eliminate bugs like caterpillars that might hatch in your compost if you're outdoor composting?
If your compost gonna heat up, right, it heat up as far as the brother alluded to, 150, 160 degrees. Right. Any type of critters in there, they are not gonna last at all. So you don't have to worry about any caterpillars coming up out of the compost, because they won't be there. They'd be dead. And if they're dead, you just add them to the soil and let the Creator continue what he does best, or wherever, and go from there. You won't have any critters coming out of that good compost. You can believe that. Because the heat is going to kill them.
So I'm assuming also there won't be any probably seed sprouting either, because that was another question. With seeds.
Okay, yeah. When you do compost, it'll kill the seeds. 160 degrees, 150 degrees will kill the seeds, majority of them. You might have a few seeds every now and then come up, but that temperature will destroy all your seeds. Just heat itself.
So someone also asked about just general composting. Do you have any resources or where they can find what good composting looks like, so they know that they're on the right track? Because they asked for pictures, really. That's for Brother Kwame, Sister Portia, Brother Gerald, anyone.
Yeah. Sister Portia, she hit the nail right on the head. When you get that good compost, it'll be such a smelly aroma to where you say, this is it. It will smell nice. It's just when the rain falls upon the earth, you get that nice smell of Mother Earth. It will smell good. If it stinks, it's not any good at all, but you will have a nice aroma too.
And generally, compost is very, it's very dark, black, rich, and fluffy. It's not going to be like something that is going to be too chalky or anything. It's going to be very fluffy, very beautiful, sweet smell, and very, very dark. That lets you know that it is nutrient rich.
Thank you. And then the last question is to Brother Gerald. Someone asked, do you travel to farms to help set up a system, like aquaponics system?
No, ma'am, I don't. Not the aquaponics system, not yet. We do with hoop houses now, but we no ma'am, no ma'am, I don't do that. But we could probably do it if you know if it's convenient.
All right. Well, for the people who are attendees, I hope you wrote down the contact information or took a screenshot from our PowerPoint presentation. If you didn't, you can always email us from seedtoharvest20@gmail.com. And also, we'll have our contact information at the very end of the presentation of the whole workshop. So then if you want to get, like if you missed something from today, then you can always contact us and we'll contact the presenters for you. So I'm going to turn it back over to Sister Rhonda because that's the end of our Q&A. Thank you all for your wonderful, wonderful answers. This was so deep. And just give us about a few seconds to transition back over so I can get it to Sister Rhonda.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I am back. I am inspired, and what I'm leaving with this is saying, let's begin becoming stewards to our environment. And also, if you want to eat good, wholesome food, you must compost. Thank you all very much. I'm going to just do some brief announcements and then close out and then do our close out with our garden presentation. Okay, announcements. Next month, our next month presentation, we're gonna do presentations once per month, and 2 weeks we dissect every aspect to become a successful gardener all year round. And the next one we're doing greenhouse and hoop houses. So you don't want to miss that because we're going into the winter months and gardening you want to continue, you don't want to stop. Pause, we want to continue. And this is very good practice while we have a lull of time span to learn and do. So look for that, and the date moving forward was the Sunday, August 23rd, and we will be sending out information on that. Now, remember, you can subscribe to texting and mailing list. Text the word seedling, SEEDLING, to the phone number 31996. Also, you can join the mailing list by emailing from seedtoharvest20@gmail.com. And I know last month we said a video presentation. Last month will be present. We had to make a few. My assistant here, Kadira, had to work on a few things to get that high because that was the first time. Huh? Daughter. That's my daughter. So she said daughter. She's my daughter. Yes, she is. So she has to make some adjustments to that presentation, and hopefully our goal is to have both present for you for your review so you can learn and gain the knowledge that you need. So look for that also coming up. And basically, I'd like to thank everyone. I'd like to thank my fantastic panelists with the wealth of wisdom that actually inspired me and deeply to continue moving forward for myself. And I hope and pray that it inspires you all to start from small. Like Sister Portia, to start small. You don't have to start big, but start with something and move forward on that. I'd like to also thank my darling husband, Tariq Muhammad, for his always supporting me in all that I do. My tech support, my daughter Kadira, and Amira is my younger daughter. She's also my tech support as well. I'd like to thank my friends, family, my sister Sheena and Cheryl is joining us on the call out of New York City. And thank you all, everyone else for joining us. A shout out to OKC, NYC, Maryland, Houston, and wherever you are. If I didn't call your location, I thank you so much for joining us as well. Again, I say thank you very much. It's been a pleasure being your host. We're gonna close out, and God willing, I wish you all peace and much blessings as we close out with our presentation of gardens that now this from beginners to intermediate to advanced. Where you are, you're celebrating your beginning or your continued progress. Thank you all, and after this, have a wonderful evening.